Hello and welcome to the Ice Guys. This is the show that takes you into the world of the National Hockey League. Every game, every day, from a betting perspective. With pro sports handicappers, Ian Cameron, Alex B. Smith, and various guests from the world of hockey and sports betting. And now, here's your host, Ian Cameron.
Welcome to the Ice Guys, presented by Boston Hemp Inc. Saturday, May the 11th. Ian Cameron with you, solo today on this Saturday. Ready to break down the Saturday NHL playoff slate. 2 more games tonight. We have our first elimination game of the second round tonight as the New York Rangers look to bust out the brooms and sweep away the Carolina Hurricanes tonight down in Raleigh for Game 4 of that series. We'll also talk Game 3 with the series all knotted at 1 game apiece between the Dallas Stars and Colorado Avalanche out west. Looking forward to both of those games tonight. Before we get to those, of course, we look back on Friday's 2 games, and it was a game where the Florida Panthers flexed their potential superiority in this series last night. That's now 2 convincing wins in a row for Florida after losing Game 1. And when you see a result like that last night for the Florida Panthers in a game where Boston is back home after getting drubbed by the Panthers in Game 2, and for Florida to come out and just take it to Boston right from the opening puck drop, for Boston to have another of a series of really lifeless first periods going back to the Toronto series. I mean, their Game 5 start in the Toronto series was horrific. The Game 6 start in the Toronto series was horrific. And again, last night, they had an absolutely horrendous start to the game last night. I mean, that game got into the third period, and Boston hadn't even cracked double-digit shots on goal in the game. So it really does tell you all you need to know about just how much Florida was the better squad last night in that game. Yeah, there was a little crack in the door opening for the Boston Bruins once they got it to 4-2, obviously, and maybe Florida guilty of maybe sitting back a little bit, but make no mistake about it, that game was all Florida last night. It was really a pathetic performance on home ice by Boston, especially to start the game that way. I mean, you just got your teeth kicked in by the Florida Panthers in Game 2. You're back home. You have a chance in a series that's still there for the taking. You're tied 1-1. You did what you wanted to do in Florida, and that's get a split. And for you to come out and start the game that way on home ice at the TD Garden last night, it was just unacceptable. And look, Jimmy Murphy has been very critical at times of Jim Montgomery not taking ownership for when things don't go well for the Boston Bruins. Last year, when he was criticized for his goaltending decision-making when they lost to the Panthers in the first round, he didn't say, "Oh, that was my fault. I kind of botched the decision as to when to play Swayman, when to play Allmark." He said, "Ask the goalie coach, Bob Essensa, last year." Kind of threw him under the bus. He obviously called out David Pastrnak in the first round against Toronto, but Montgomery really hadn't taken much ownership, but he did last night. I do give him credit because in the post-game press conference, he basically said, "You know what? I didn't have this team ready to play last night. Didn't have them prepared. That's on me. I'll take the responsibility for that." I did like seeing that, and I think he knows that there's a potential that this series gets away from Boston with what we've seen the last 2 games, because it's not only that Florida's dominated them at 5-on-5 now, back-to-back games, and really in Game 1, when the Bruins beat the Panthers, Florida still had the edge in shots. I think it was just one of those games where, Panthers were coming off the long layoff, the hiatus that they had after finishing off Tampa Bay in the first round, and they didn't look sharp. Bobrovsky, it wasn't one of his better games. The puck management wasn't all that good for Florida in Game 1, and the Bruins capitalized on it. But since that, they shook off the rust. Like, if that's the problem with truly believing Boston's still in the series. I mean, it is only 2-1, and we could be talking about Boston bouncing back, winning Game 4, and it's anybody's series again, 2-2 going back to sunrise. No question that's a possibility. But when you really look at it, the Boston win in Game 1 was really a win where you have to ask yourself, were the Bruins just the better team that night, or did they really capitalize on fortuitous circumstances where Florida had the rest, Florida had the hiatus, Florida had the layoff. They weren't really all that sharp. They were out of rhythm after playing the Tampa series. Meanwhile, Boston on the adrenaline high 48 hours after finishing off Toronto in that Game 7 overtime. Did they just take advantage of circumstances in Game 1? Because, again, since Game 1, Florida's dominated this series, dominated these two games, Game 2 and in Game 3. So that's really what you've got to question. And that's why it's hard now to I've kind of lost some confidence in Boston. And plus, like I said, the cloak of invincibility from Jeremy Swayman is now gone. That's now 6 goals that they scored against him in Game 2. Another 6 spot last night in the victory in Game 3. And look, I'm not one to it's not Swayman's fault. But I think this could be a moment where we actually do see a goalie change for Boston in Game 4, and we go to Linus Ullmark. People will mention that he's, 3-0 with a 1.62 goals against average and, 947 save percentage against Florida this year. Linus Ullmark, when he's played against, he has had tremendous numbers this season against the Florida Panthers. But, and I do actually think, if you ask me right now, I do think Ullmark's going to start Game 4 just to switch it up, just to see if, he can duplicate that success he had against Florida in the regular season, but I don't know if it's going to be enough. And to make matters worse, now your captain, Brad Marchand, leaves the game last night due to injury, doesn't return. Jimmy Murphy just posted moments ago before we started the show here that Brad Marchand did not participate in practice this morning for the Boston Bruins. So that leaves his status for Sunday night, which is almost a must for Boston to win that game. They're going to have any shot in this series. That leaves their captain status, Brad Marchand, very much in peril for Game 4 tomorrow night. So that ends up being the concern here moving forward with the Bruins, is that, they've been absolutely beaten up, destroyed in these last 2 games, just completely dominant everything, shots, territorial play, offensive zone time. The power play has started to heat up big time for the Florida Panthers the last 2 games. Absolutely costly double minor in the second period with that high stick, which ended up really being a bad penalty and a tough one, because Florida scored not once but twice on that power play. And it's pretty much the moment when they kind of seized control of the game. But yeah, there's issues right now for the Boston Bruins. You know what? With all due respect, and he was great last night. He got their first goal. I think just him running into Bobrovsky a little bit, although he didn't really run into him. He kind of got pushed in. It was a bad call. It was on Jacob Lauko last night, but I give that kid credit. You could have made an argument he was the best Bruins forward last night. And that's, look, all the credit in the world to Jacob Lauko. But when he is your best forward in a game, that's a problem. For Boston, it just is. That's not something you want to see on a regular basis. But again, Florida with their, relentless attack, relentless on the forecheck, winning the puck battles. And again, just like I talked about after Game 2, I'll say the same thing after Game 3 last night. They got to the middle parts of the ice. They got to the loose pucks in front of the net. They got the traffic areas. Look at the goal that Verhaeghe had on the power play. He was inside position, right in the blue paint, right in the crease, able to get to that puck. And not defended well enough, not tied up well enough in front of the net by the Bruins, able to get the tip home on the power play for Florida. Just those instances where you can clearly see that, the Panthers have gotten to their game and Boston's got to fix things. And I don't know where you turn to. I think Jim Montgomery will give Ullmark a start because he can bank on the fact that Ullmark's had outstanding success this year against the Florida Panthers. But I don't know if I can totally hang my hat on that. Ullmark's going to start. We're suddenly going to win. It's not that simple. Yes, that's a start to maybe turning things around, giving Ullmark a chance. But it's got to start up front. It's got to start with staying out of the box. It's got to start with, helping your goalie out, which, the Bruins are usually, when they're on their game defensively, they're doing a good job of that. And I feel bad for Charlie McAvoy. He had another very blah game last night, and I'm being kind when I say that. He has had a very underwhelming playoffs overall. He's had some mistakes defensively. He's been beaten. He's not really chipped in a lot at the offensive end. He's been in the penalty box. I mean, it's been a really tough playoffs for Charlie McAvoy. And this is a guy that's extremely important for the Bruins on their blue line. And again, when he's playing like this, That makes it tough for Boston to win games and overcome it. And like I said, it's the guy cares. The guy wants to win. The guy wants to help this Bruins team advance as far as they can in the playoffs. But there's no question he's not playing A-level hockey right now for the Boston Bruins. So there's really a ton of issues right now for them, and they're going to have to try to shake things up going into Game 4. And again, the status of Brad Marchand really looms large going into Sunday night's Game 4, which again is almost a must for the Bruins to get that victory tomorrow night, because if they go down 3-1, Florida, I think, is too good, to lose 3 straight times in this series, like Boston did, obviously, last year in the first round. The other game last night, and look, Edmonton, Vancouver, and I said this last night watching this game, it was an absolute electric factory. The game was incredible. Outstanding. The pace. I mean, it was funny because there was one time late in the second period, I think the shots were 12-12, and you'd think, well, that's not a very high shot volume type of game after 2 periods. That's one of those deals where if you look at the shots on goal, it's not going to tell the whole story. That game, as far as pace is concerned, it was off the charts. It was back and forth. Vancouver's, to my surprise, has not really sat back in this series. They've not tried to play in a defensive shell. They've not tried to clog things up as much in the neutral zone. They've almost gone tit for tat here so far in this series, with the Edmonton Oilers, and it's led to some great hockey. In fact, I think if you look back from what I've seen, I've watched pretty much every second of every game so far here in the second round. I think you can make a case that every game in the second round has been flat out awesome, has been a phenomenal game, tense, dramatic, exciting, with the exception of course, pretty much every Bruins-Panthers game where, Boston ended up winning handily in Game 1. Florida's won handily the last 2 games. There was no late game drama, late game tension in any of those Boston-Florida games. But even with that series, even though we haven't seen the close games and the drama like we at the end of the game like we've seen in the other series, it's made the physicality and the nastiness and the hatred, is kind of made up for it. So even that series has been entertaining from that standpoint, even though the games haven't been close down the stretch. But you go back to last Sunday when we had Hurricanes and Rangers Game 1. That's where the second round started. Hurricanes Rangers Game 1, good game, very good game. Not a phenomenal game, but a very good game. Then you had Bruins Panthers. Like I said, that series, as far as end game drama, we haven't had it. But every game from every other series, here in the second round has been an incredible hockey game, in my opinion. Like I said, Hurricanes Rangers Game 1 was a pretty good game. Then we had Hurricanes Rangers Game 2 on Tuesday night, which was that double overtime thriller where Vinny Trocheck won it in overtime 4-3. Colorado Dallas, that incredible comeback by the Avs down 3-0 after the first period. They came back to win in overtime. Miles Wood, that was another excellent hockey game. Then we go to Edmonton Vancouver Game 1 on Wednesday night. Stunning, spectacular third period comeback by Vancouver down 4-1, win that game 5-4. Rangers Canes Game 3 Thursday night, another outstanding game. Tons of drama. Carolina ties it late. Another overtime game. And, of course, Panarin wins it in overtime. Dallas, Colorado, Game 2. Great game. Dallas got up 4-0. Colorado made it tense, made it dramatic down the stretch. They got it to 4-3, and then Dallas put it away into the empty net. That was a great game. And then this game last night, Game 2 with Edmonton, Vancouver. Another great hockey game. Back and forth, momentum swings. All kinds of ups and downs, a roller coaster ride of emotions. And Edmonton prevails 4-3 in overtime with the type of performance that I kind of foreshadowed yesterday on the show from Connor McDavid. Someone that we thought would really step up after getting held to no shots on goal in game number 2. And I got to actually give a lot of credit too as well to Leon Draisaitl. He was looking earlier in the day like he wasn't going to go. And, you look at the situation, and he was really hurting after Game 1. I'm not going to go into details, but I've heard some things from people a little closer to the situation that Draisaitl was in really rough shape after Game 1, like really rough shape in terms of, trying to get to sleep and all this stuff, like that kind of pain. And, persevered through it. He's a tough son of a gun. We saw it, remember in the playoffs last year, could barely walk out there, barely skate up, barely move out there. And there he is blocking shots. He's a tough tough guy. There's no doubt. And he persevered through it, played last night. Not only played, but 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 points for Leon Draisaitl last night. Just tremendous from him. And look, for Edmonton, the problem for them in game 1 was at 5-on-5 even strength. They were dominated by Vancouver. And even earlier in this game, we were starting to think, is this team going to do all their damage on the power play? When is this team going to finally step up and play some good hockey at 5-on-5? Well, they finally did, and it was in the third period of game 2 last night. 5-on-5 dominance from Edmonton. Absolutely dominant in the third period. 15-2 shots on goal. It felt like Vancouver was stuck in their own zone, hemmed in their own zone for the entire third period of that game last night. And if not for Arturs Shilovs in net, he absolutely could have been over before we even got to overtime last night. But great resolve by Edmonton, because look, it was 2-2. That could have been a backbreaker of a goal to give up for Edmonton, with Nikita Zadorov with that bad angle shot from the boards that beat Skinner. It's a terrible goal to give up for Skinner last night in that game. You know what? We got to change the voice. When he's giving up a goal like that, it can't be that Skinner. We got to do Skinner. That's the one. That's the voice we need when he gives up a goal like that. It's not a good goal. And Henrik Lundqvist, I retweeted it, or reposted it. Make sure you check that out. He was talking about something that these goalies are doing way too much, and it's hurting them. This reverse VH concept of you go down to cover the short side post, but you go down on one knee almost to do it. And as a result, you don't stay big in the net. You don't stay upright. You're giving up way too much of the top part of the net. And this is a goaltending technique that goalies are using too much. And in the eyes of one of the greatest goalies in the history of the sport, Henrik Lundqvist, and I agree with him fully, it's hurting these goaltenders. It's really giving them problems here. And it used to be back in the day that you stay upright and you make yourself big in the net. When you're basically going down to one knee just because you want to hug the short side post and you're leaving the top part of the net under the crossbar exposed, I don't see how that's good goaltending technique. And Skinner got burned by it in the Zadorov goal last night. There's no doubt. So, like I said, I agree with him fully. And we saw actually Saros, and it was they showed the highlight. Zadorov beat Saros in the first round against Nashville with a very similar shot from a similar position, and Saros did the same shit that Skinner did last night on that Zadorov goal. Down on one knee, making yourself small, crouched down, leaving the exposed, the top part of the net exposed, and it just not exactly the technique I would use. Stay upright, stay big, stand up, as Henrik Lundqvist said last night. Stand up, and you're going to give yourself a better chance probably to make that save. So that could have been a backbreaker. That's a horrible goal. Edmonton probably deflated a little bit going into the third period, down 3-2, giving up a late goal like that. But the resolve they showed in coming back, Connor McDavid again leading the way with a big-time breakaway to tie the game 3-3 in the third, made the Chaos Giraffe, Tyler Myers, and Carson Soucy look really silly on that. Soucy collided with his own player, and then Myers fell down on the play, and then McDavid was off to the races with that breakaway goal to tie it. And then in overtime, look, sometimes you need a good break. You need a lucky bounce. You need some puck luck. And Edmonton got it. Evan Bouchard's shot clearly went in. He couldn't have deflected it in better if you're Ian Cole, defenseman for the Vancouver Canucks. Right in off his stick. It's a beautiful. He should have gotten credit for the goal, Ian Cole. I mean, it was just a beautiful redirection off his stick, right in past his own goaltender, Arturs Shilovs. But it's obviously a tough way to lose for Vancouver. Bit of a break for Edmonton, but they earned the breaks, and they were better. They got stronger as the game went on. They ended up finally, tilting the scales 5-on-5. And I think that's a very good confidence booster for Edmonton to win a game like that, tie up the series, knowing that finally at 5-on-5 even strength, they got the better of Vancouver, especially in the third period and beyond last night. Because there's a lot of people that think this Edmonton team is just their fugazis when it comes to 5-on-5 play, that they're power play merchants. That's where they do all their damage. That's the only place you can consistently count on them. But to see them finally step up with a great game at 5-on-5, especially third period and beyond, it's definitely good news for Edmonton moving forward in this series. And like I said, there's no doubt Vancouver will come right back with Artur Shilovs in Game 3. There's no question. That was it. You know what's funny about Shilovs? He played worse in the Game 1 win than he did last night in the Game 2 loss. He really did. I mean, if you watch the game, there's no doubt Shilovs played better last night in Game 2, even though his team lost, than he did in Game 1 when his team won. He played very, very well in net. And and until the Thatcher Demko is ready to come back for the Vancouver Canucks, and it's still going to be a while, assuming they are still in the playoffs long enough to have him come back, then it is definitely going to be Shilovs in net for the Vancouver Canucks. And like I said, he was the main reason why that game even got to overtime, because he was just absolutely getting bombarded in the third period and had to make a bunch of really key saves. But just an outstanding hockey game. Again, the first two games of Oilers Canucks have been tremendous hockey, tremendous drama, excitement, no doubt. Looking forward to Game 3 tomorrow night between those two teams. And Pettersson, even in a losing effort for Vancouver, there are some positives, and one of them is Pettersson finding the score sheet, getting that power play goal early. Maybe it can get him going a little bit. There's no question. What Zadorov continues to do is just incredible in these playoffs. What's he got, like 4 playoff goals already this year for the Canucks? And he had 5 goals all regular season. So he continues to just, and that's not just the goal scoring with Zadorov. It's the physicality. It's the shot blocking. It's the defensive prowess. It's really all the other stuff that he brings as well. So no doubt. And that was a great betting game. It was a really good night overall for me last night, really. We had Florida. The only thing we lost was Bruins to score in the first. That was unfortunate. We had Florida, though, to win the game. They won comfortably. And then a very good result for me with the Edmonton-Vancouver game. It took Oilers to score in the first period. First period over, full game over, which was the best bet on the show. So it was a very solid, profitable winning night on Friday. And it's been a nice few days now. We're stringing together multiple profitable days here in the Stanley Cup playoffs. A bit of an up and down start, but personally, things are really starting to get rolling here in the playoffs the last few days. So definitely looking forward to that. Alex is just back home in Chicago. He's spending time with the family and his mom. Remember, his mom's had some ups and downs health-wise the last several months. So we're giving him the time to be with family and be with mom. There's nothing wrong with Alex. He's fine. He'll be back later this week. Probably Wednesday is his day scheduled to be back with us on the show. So it's just me today. I think Zach Urban will be with me tomorrow on the Sunday show. So we'll get Zach back in. Zach Urban was at that game last night, by the way, with Edmonton and Vancouver. He lives out in BC. He was at the game last night, Oilers Canucks. So we'll get a little bit of a post-game report there from Zach, how things were last night at that game for him. So he'll be with me tomorrow. Brett Skalski will be with me on Monday. I think we got a guest coming, I believe, on Tuesday, but it's not confirmed yet, but we'll see. And and Matt Robinson is going to be back in the fold on Tuesday as well for his regular spot as well. So keep that up after he was away at work conference all week. So that's the plan. And don't forget Betcasts this week, Tuesday night, Thursday night, Patreon exclusive. Make sure you join us for those Tuesday night and Thursday night, Patreon exclusive live Betcasts this week, 2 of them, Tuesday night and Thursday night. And we'll talk more about that later in the show. All right, let's get into tonight. 2 games in the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs. We'll begin with a potential series clincher for the New York Rangers, up 3-0 over the Carolina Hurricanes. I got to admit, I'm going to take a little bit of a hurt here with the 6 and 7 game series props. I don't feel good about this series going 6 or 7 anymore. I could see Carolina winning tonight to get the series back to Madison Square Garden, but I don't know if it comes back to Carolina for Game 6. Plus, it could be over tonight. You just never know with just how, unless Carolina gets the power play going, it might be over tonight. But Carolina rather, minus 145, home favorites, 5.5 the total. Of course, Rangers lead the series 3-0 here. It's just difficult here for Carolina. You feel like this feels like the Florida ouster last year in the Eastern Conference Final all over again. You're there. You're right there. You're right there in every fucking game with this Rangers team. You lost 4-3 in Game 1. You lose back-to-back games in overtime. Let's not act like the Rangers are killing this team. They're not. In fact, they're getting outshot heavily in the last 2 games especially. But at the end of the day, they're making the plays. Their game breakers offensively have stepped up. Zibanejad, Kreider, Lafreniere, Panarin, Trocheck. They've been awesome. That group of players that I just named, how good have they all been? How good have they been in this series? Kreider, Zibanejad, Lafreniere, Panarin, and Trocheck. The big 5 so far in this series for the New York Rangers. They've been phenomenal. They've been absolutely tremendous for the Rangers in this series. They finished their chances. This power play for the Rangers has been incredible in the series. We see what they've done. Significant damage. It's actually funny is they actually did, for a change, they did not have as much success in Game 3 in Carolina, but still overall for the series, 13 power play attempts, and they are 4 for 13 so far in this series. So it's been very impressive from the New York Rangers, what they've been able to do here in this series with the man advantage. And it's their man advantage looking awesome, and it's the Carolina power play looking abysmal. Carolina has still, to this point in the series, they have still yet to score a power play goal. I mean, it is just it's getting really, really rough to watch how this Carolina power play has been during this series. And, I'm really not so sure if things are going to change really all that much here tonight in Game 4, because to what many people have said, about their analysis of the first 3 games of this series, it's true. In the key games last year for Carolina, especially later in the playoffs, their power play, which was great in the regular season, kind of disappeared. And what makes this even a bigger indictment of their power play struggles, which they've had in years past when they've been bounced from the Stanley Cup playoffs, what makes this even more frustrating for Carolina is they got Jake Guentzel. They were supposed to have corrected these issues. They were supposed to have corrected these concerns about the power play not getting it done for them in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And yet we're seeing the same old problems resurface. Just too passive. I don't think there's enough shots going toward net. There's too much overpassing. There's not enough traffic in front of Igor Shesterkin with a lot of these power plays. And then not only that, but their entries, their zone entries have been abysmal at times with the power play. And that's why the Rangers have been able to have not a plethora of shorthanded chances against this Carolina power play. And of course, a shorthanded goal in Game 3, courtesy of Chris Kreider. So it's been a brutal stretch for this Carolina power play. To think that they've gone this deep into the series over on the power play, with especially after what they added at the trade deadline, Kuznetsov and especially Guentzel, it's mind-boggling that the power play is still a problem area for them in the playoffs again, even though they work to address that, bringing in a guy like Jake Guentzel. So until that power play gets cooking and gets humming a little bit for Carolina, they're not going to win this series, and they may not even win a game, in this series. So that's something you have to watch for. What does Carolina do in net? Not heard anything yet. Rod Brindamore said after Game 2 that he started Pyotr Kochetkov in Game 3 to spark the team, and because he wanted to give Frederik Andersen a little bit of rest. Does he I'll tell you what, Kochetkov was fine. That's not the reason you lost game number 3 the other night. Do you go back to Andersen? Look, he's going to be rested. I get that. I'll be honest. I liked more of what I saw from Pyotr Kochetkov in one game in Game 3 than what I saw from Frederik Andersen in the first 2 games. I'll just say it like it is. Tell it like it is. If they go back to Freddie, I'm not going to say the series is over, but I don't think that's necessarily a great thing for Carolina's chances, quite honestly, here in the game tonight. Bottom line is I can't lay any price with Carolina. That much is for certain. I'm not laying minus 145 with them. I had the Carolina puck line first period the other night. I could see maybe going back to that for something. Maybe a first period, Carolina to score once again like they did in Game 3. That does interest me. I do like those spots where the team that lost the previous game, especially with facing elimination like this on home ice, that they, pepper the goalie early. And they did that in Game 3. They peppered Shesterkin. They got the Jake Gensel deflection goal. So I probably sprinkle on the puck line first period and the Carolina to score a goal in the first period again, like I did in game number 3. I bet those again here tonight, but that's it. That is it. We are not doing anything as far as full game with this Carolina team. We're just not. Everything is going to be just like it was in game 3 for me, where I'll jump in on a little puck line here on Carolina in the first period. Carolina to score a goal in the first period, because I think they got a good chance to. They will. Look, the one difference, too, is people will say, well, they got swept by Florida last year in the East Final. Why can't they get swept this year? Well, they got swept by Florida on the road. It's one thing to get swept on the road, and it's one thing to get swept at home. You really don't want to get swept at home in front of your home fans, to not only lose the series, but get swept on home ice. And I will point something out. And it's something worth talking about. Yes, the Rangers swept the Capitals. So there's one example of a team that was up 3-0 in the first round, sweeping the opponent. But how bad was Washington? How terrible was Washington in that series? Like I said, one of the probably the worst playoff teams I've seen, in quite some time. But don't forget the other 2 series that where teams had a chance to sweep the opponent and they weren't able to get the job done. We saw Tampa Bay at home in game 4 stay alive against Florida and not get swept on home ice. And we also saw the New York Islanders against Carolina step up in game 4 at home, not get swept on home ice. Teams do not want to get swept at all, of course, but especially when they're at home on home ice. They don't want to. So I don't think this is wow, Carolina's crushed. Carolina's going to just roll over now. They've lost faith. They've lost confidence. They're just looking to, no, not with a Rod Brind'Amour coach team. They're coming to play tonight, especially at the start, and I think they're going to have a great first period again, like they did in game 3. The question is, can they sustain it for 60 minutes? Because they couldn't. Again, the power play can't come through for them when it was 1-0 and they had chances to extend the lead. They couldn't. They let the Rangers hang around, and the next thing you know, Rangers tied it up 1-1. And the moment the Rangers tied it 1-1, you knew that Carolina was in some trouble, that, they had lost all that momentum. So like I said, Carolina early, I like those looks, but that's it. And then as far as, but what I also like in this game, it's a weird approach. Carolina to score in the first period. Carolina puck line, which again is plus 1. Let me see what it is. Plus 180. Or sorry, that's not the right. That's the full game. The first period puck line is plus 170. Still a pretty good price. But I like Rangers team total over 2.5 for the game. Rangers team total over 2.5 for the game here in this one. So it's a weird approach. It's a weird approach, but I've got a game flow in mind. And the game flow to me is Carolina early, maybe get the jump. Rangers then have to open up. If it's Freddie Anderson in net, not totally fully confident in him shutting the door completely. And let's say Carolina, let's say we have something similar to game number 3 of this series, where Carolina gets the lead after the first period. Great start, but they let the Rangers hang around. Rangers tie it. Rangers take the lead, which they did 2-1 in game 3 the other night. And then we got the Rangers leading in the third period. You know what's going to happen. Carolina facing elimination on home ice. You're going to see them take chances. They're going to have to open up. You're going to see the potential for Rod Brind'Amour to pull the goalie with 5 minutes to go, maybe even 6 minutes to go. You're going to see opportunity here for the Rangers to tack on goals if they are in that proverbial spot where they're leading in the third period. So, yeah, definitely I think the Rangers, especially at a cheap price like this, over 2.5, that barely even money. I mean, you can get plus 100 or better with the Rangers team total over 2.5 in some spots. So that's the way I'm going to approach this here. Carolina early. Those 2 bets hit for me in game 3. Carolina to score in the first period. Carolina puck line, but also full game on the other side. Rangers team total over 2.5 here in this game, minus 108. And I'm going to keep that bet small because let's see how the game plays out, because I think it becomes an even better live bet, a Rangers team total, if they're up in the third period, as well as the live third period over. So, over 5.5 pregame, maybe get in on that small, but my primary approach here is going to be wait for something a little bit better during the third period. Wait for that, opportunity if we see a 2-1, 3-1, 3-2 type of lead for the Rangers in the third period, and that's the time to strike live with the third period over, knowing that this is a elimination game here. As far as player props go, it's an absolute must to bet Vincent Trocheck. It is an absolute must to bet this guy. He's been phenomenal. And another multi-point game. And I said, don't be scared to take over 1.5 points with him. Here in the playoffs, he has had multi-point games for the Rangers, 5 of the last 6. He's had goals in 5 of the last 6 games as well for the New York Rangers. He's a must player prop bet right now. There's nothing else you can say when it comes to Vincent Trocheck at the moment for them. Lafreniere's been great for them. Look in that direction. Panarin over 1.5 points. We've seen how many times he's capable of doing that. And keep in mind, too, with some of these Rangers props, there's going to be a chance to add garbage goals, garbage assists, garbage points, to the tally if they're leading in the third, and they're going to have all these empty net shots in this game. So that's another thing you got to think in the back of your mind. What if the Rangers are leading in the third? They're going to get a chance to pad all their stats with empty net situations, late in the game. So keep that in mind as well. And then for Carolina, it's like Earth to Aho, he's got to get going. Like, he's too important to this team. He's too good. He's got to get going here for the Hurricanes. I think overshots with Aho. He's got to find a way to break through. And look, easier said than done, because Igor Shesterkin has just been incredible. Another just phenomenal game. 45 saves in game 3, 54 saves in game 2. I mean, he's just been incredible. He is making it miserable on Carolina to try to beat him and find a way to score and finish. But definitely, like I said, you got to hope Aho, Gensel, those guys in particular step up. Marty Necas has been disappointing in this series. They've got to get something better from him than what he's shown so far. And Seth Jarvis was pretty quiet too, and we know he's capable of better. We'll see if they're able to step up here. And another prop we have to go back to the well with, and my only mistake with this prop on Thursday night in Game 3 was not doing the ladder on Igor Shesterkin over saves. I only went with over 30.5 in Game 3, and you got to go back to that here. Carolina's going to pound the puck a lot. They're going to be in a shoot from anywhere mentality. This is season on the line for them, no question about it. So to me, you absolutely have to give a long, hard look once again here at Igor Shesterkin over saves here in Game 4 tonight. Because again, you're going to get this Carolina Hurricanes team looking to shoot the puck from anywhere, backs against the wall mentality. And we've seen the Rangers, they'll live with giving up 40 shots. We've seen that now in back-to-back games. There's no doubt. So, like I said, just not only Shesterkin over 30.5 saves, minus 122 at Betano, but look at the ladder options. Bet365 has them. FanDuel has them. Other books, shop around. You might be able to get the goals tender save ladder props. But again, you could have had 45 saves for Shesterkin at plus 800, plus 1,000, in Game 3. Now they've reduced the prices a little bit here, because you see that Shesterkin 35 saves plus 170, 40 saves plus 425, 45 saves plus 850. So they have, definitely reduced the price a little bit. The odds makers are, I think, aware that Carolina is probably going to have another high shot volume game tonight. But like I said, definitely Shesterkin saves. Very good look, in my opinion, once again here tonight. All right, the second game on this Saturday slate, West semifinal, Game 3, Ball Arena, the Mile High City, Denver, Colorado, Dallas Stars, Colorado Avalanche. Colorado minus 130, home favorite, 6.5 the total. Series tied 1-1. So let's get the easy stuff out of the way. You guys know that when it comes to this series, I expect goals, and I don't expect the goals to slow down until we get to like a elimination game or a Game 6, Game 7 type situation where, those games seem to be automatic unders, in most series, and we certainly saw that in the first round. But here in games in the earlier part of the series still. It's hard to see where the goals slow down, where we see, as far as these two teams matching up head to head, majority of games have gone over the total. All but one game in their pandemic season series in the playoffs back in 2020. Every game in that series except one went over the total between Dallas and Colorado. So when these teams meet up, there's usually goals. So it's an over trifecta game for me. Over 1.5, both teams to score, and over 6.5, which I like quite a bit once again. But in this game, from a side perspective, I think this is going to be, these are two excellent teams. There's been, Dallas, you could say they could be up 2-0, but look, they blew the 3-0 lead. Give Colorado credit. They hung on in game 2, and people will detriment and criticize Dallas and penalize them for blowing the game and the lead in game 1 and losing in overtime, and criticize them for almost blowing it in game 2. But I'm not doing that because Colorado's that damn good, offensively. They're phenomenal at the offensive end of the ice. They are so good that they can give any team fits. I don't care how good the goaltender is, in this case, Jake Ottinger. We know Dallas has beefed up the blue line to suppress goals with the likes of Chris Tanev brought in at the deadline to make them better defensively. Doesn't matter. Colorado can make hay against anybody when they're on their game, when they're moving the puck like they are, especially when you're giving them power play opportunities at bad times during the game, which Dallas did in both of the first 2 games. That's what we've seen from Colorado. You could probably throw Patrick Waugh in the 80s and 90s and that Montreal defense in front of this Colorado team. They'd still find their way to 3-4 goals most nights, minimum. That's how good they are. You could put the 90s Devils up there against Nathan McKinnon and this current edition of Colorado. I'd still feel confident Colorado can get me 3-4 goals, especially at home. So that's the issue here with this series, is that for as good, I do believe Dallas has the better defensive D, the better goaltender with Ottinger over Georgiev. But at the end of the day, Colorado, it doesn't matter. Colorado can still find their way to 3-4 goals. That's just the way it is. And look, I expect this to be kind of a back and forth series. It started out that way. Colorado takes game 1. Dallas takes game 2. If you buy into this being a close, long, very competitive series, zigzag theory, you should be on Colorado tonight. And I definitely lean Colorado tonight. But as you know, I'm going to go a different route here with Colorado. Rather than the minus 130, I'm going to take the team total. That's the move. That's the move. That's the move. If whoever you like in this series, take their team total instead, especially when they're the favorite. Like for Dallas tonight, could you take over 2.5 minus 155? Yeah. But if you like if you like the underdog, take the money line. If you like the favorite, take the team total over. That's the approach to me. Like if you like Dallas tonight, take them on the money line. If you like the favorite, don't lay like Dallas was, for instance, in game 2. Don't take the money line with them in this very same price range, minus 130, minus 135. Take their team total. And if you did that with Dallas in game 2, not only did you cash it, but you didn't have to sweat that ridiculous finish where it got to 4-3. And if you had money line with Dallas, you're sweating at the end. Whereas if you were me and you had just Dallas team total over 3.5 in game 2, you already cashed long ago, late second period. No stress at all with the way that game finished in game 2. Same thing here. If you like Colorado, if you like the favorite, the value is the team total, not the money line. It's really that simple. It really is. So for me, I like Colorado, team total here rather than the money line. You can take the money line if you want, but I want zero interest. I have zero interest in that because to me, if Colorado wins this game, they are scoring 4 goals. So over 3.5, you can get it at plus 110 with the Colorado team total here in this game. Another reason why I think Colorado bounces back and wins, it's not only them being at home where they went 2-0 against Winnipeg in the first round. It's not just the fact that, you know what they're averaging as far as goals per game in the 2 home games in the first round? 5.5 goals per game. That's what they're averaging per game at home in the playoffs. Now, only a 2-game sample size against Winnipeg, but again, 5.5 shots on goal per game. So like I said, when you look at it, if they're averaging 5.5 goals per game at home in the playoffs so far, which Colorado is, definitely makes 3.5 their team total at plus money, I might add. Plus 110 look a little bit cheap. And here's another thing I think Colorado does bounce back to. Jared Bednar is he picks his spots very carefully when to call out his best players. He doesn't do it very often. Hell, he usually doesn't have any reason to, because for the most part, he knows what he's going to get from Nathan MacKinnon, Mikko Rantanen, Cale Makar, and his core players. He knows what he's going to get from that group on a nightly basis. But he wasn't thrilled with their performance in Game 2. He wasn't. The trio of MacKinnon, Rantanen, and Makar didn't have a point in Game 2, and that was only the third time since they've been together as a trio with this Avs team. That's only the third time that they have been held without a point collectively in a playoff game. That's it. And neither of them had a shot on goal at 5-on-5 even strength as far as MacKinnon and Rantanen are concerned. The 5-on-5 offense was bad. 4 shots on goal as a team at 5-on-5 in Game 2 against Dallas the other night. And Jared Bednar, he called it like he saw it. He says, I need more from these guys. When you go no shots in a playoff game or any game, there's lots of things you can do better. This was a quote from Jared Bednar after Game 2, Colorado's head coach. It starts with being a connected group as a forward line and working with one another. I felt like they were isolated a lot last night for me. Then he went on to say, we always think about them, but we generally don't run from any matchup. We'll deploy our guys pretty close to the way we always do, but we will move guys around a little bit depending on situations, time and score of the game. We've got 2 games of data to look at, make some decisions, talking about when to send out his big guns there, and he does have last line change now at home. That's another thing to factor in. It's already tough enough to match up against, MacKinnon and Rantanen and that line in particular, but now you have Colorado getting the last line change being at home, makes it even more difficult. But he says, but regardless of who Nate is playing against, I think that line can be better than they were tonight. We've yet to see that line's best in this series. Hopefully going home, they'll bring it to the best of their ability. So that's the coach basically, saying right now we need more from MacKinnon and company. So to me, not only the Avs team total, because I think you're going to get the right response from them, especially back on home ice offensively. But what I really like here tonight for props is we mentioned this same situation as far as shots on goal with McDavid last night, where he had 0 shots on goal in Game 1. You knew that was not going to be the case last night. He was going to bounce back. He was going to go above and beyond to make an impact. And sure enough, he had 5 shots on goal for the game. He scores the tying goal as well for the Oilers. It was the kind of response we expect from one of the best players in the sport, one of the best players in hockey, one of the best players in the world. And tonight is the night for Nathan MacKinnon to have a game like that, in my opinion. So to me, over shots on goal is a tremendous bet tonight. It's a very strong shot on goal prop. I felt excellent about McDavid's over 3.5 last night. I feel very strongly, just as strongly, about Nathan MacKinnon over 4.5 shots on goal minus 120 tonight. He's going to be ripping that puck. He's going to be firing Wyatt Earp style, like I say. So MacKinnon over shots. To a lesser extent, Rantanen, because Rantanen didn't have, a huge game. I think Ottinger saves might be in play. I think this is a night, too, where, he's going to face a lot of rubber tonight from this Colorado team, specifically from MacKinnon and Rantanen, but MacKinnon over shots. MacKinnon goal as well, because I think he'll get on the board plus 100. The over 1.5 point. Now, the over 1.5 points, you don't want that because it's minus 150. You'd have to probably play over 2.5 points, get creative. He could have a 3-point night. Wouldn't shock me, because this is usually how he responds when he has a quiet night, especially when he's on home ice. But yeah, Nathan MacKinnon props feel like a really good situational look tonight, especially that shots on goal, maybe even the latter shots on goal that he has, 6 shots, 7, 8, maybe. He has one of those nights where he's really firing that puck a ton here tonight in this game, no doubt. So, like I said, that makes sense to me. Arturi Lehkonen, and he's worth a look still. Nichushkin to bounce back as well. The ex-Dallas Star that's now on the Colorado side, remember, this is the guy that ended Colorado's season in the pandemic season back in 2020 in Game 7, Yoel Kiviranta. I don't know what it is about playing Dallas, but, not playing Dallas, but the playoffs. This guy shows up, man. He scores, of course, in game number 2 for the Avalanche, playing with Wood and Colton on the third line. So I think there's a little down the board value there with Kiviranta maybe for Colorado in this game tonight. And then for Dallas, is Roope Hintz heating up because he's one of those streaky players? 4 points in the win against Colorado in game 2, and a guy that had only had 1 goal, 1 point in the playoffs in 8 games before that 4-point outburst against Colorado. So is he starting to heat up? We'll have to wait and see on that. Rocco Rogers says Yakov Trenin maybe to find the back of the net here. He's only on the 4th line, but I will say this. He did score against Winnipeg in the end of that series against the Jets. That's the only goal he scored in the playoffs, but he's gotten a decent amount of ice time. Yakov Trenin is. I'll tell you what, from anyone on the 4th line, he'd be the most likely candidate to score. Although, with all due respect, I shouldn't forget about Brandon Duhaime, who did score against Dallas in game 2, but Trenin's certainly going to get a good price on him. There's no doubt. For Dallas, I still think, I'm into this spot here with Stankoven right now where I know he's had no points in this series. You got to go back to the shots on goal with him at least. He's had 3 shots on goal in every game since he's been up on the top line. And I don't think they've really priced it properly yet because you can get it's over 1.5 at -166 at DraftKings. You can lay the juice if you want, but I'll go over 2 shots on goal at Bet Victor because they have over 2 at +105. So if he gets 2 shots, you push. But he's got a good chance to get 3 shots. He's had 3 in each of the last 2 games. He's been up on the top line. Stankoven with Hintz and Robertson. Duchesne and Sagan, I think, for Dallas are worth a look because Sagan's done incredible damage against Colorado, and Matt Duchesne's facing his old team, one of his old teams, and you could see them get on the board. And I'm buying in after, a game. Yeah, there's not been many duds, or I shouldn't say duds, but there hasn't been many quiet nights for Wyatt Johnston. Even though they won game 2, 5-3, it was a quiet night. Didn't even have a shot on goal. No points. That is a rarity for him. I think that changes here in Denver tonight. In fact, you could argue Wyatt Johnston, if you look at his playoff performances, he's been all right at home. Look what he's done on the road. He's actually been even better on the road. He's shot the puck more on the road. He's produced offense more on the road. I mean, the first 2 games in Vegas, game 3 and game 4 in the first round, he had 14 shots on goal in the 2 games combined, 3 goals in those 2 games as well. So Wyatt Johnston's a road warrior, guys. He is. In fact, you could argue he's even more dangerous. He's even better on the road than he is at home. So I definitely think if you're looking at Wyatt Johnston, tonight's the night to get back on the Wyatt Johnston Express, in my opinion, because we've seen some of his better performances be on the road. Higher shot volume, more goals, more points. So definitely interested in getting back on the Express here with Wyatt Johnston. Even Miro Heiskanen, with at least with his shot prop, because if you look at Miro Heiskanen there in that game 2 against Dallas, 5 shots on goal. You go back to game 6 and 7 of the Vegas series, his last 4 games, he's had 3 or more shots in all 4. 3 or more shots in each of the last 4 games for Miro Heiskanen. So here's another guy that's firing a lot of pucks from the blue line, and the shot prop hasn't really been adjusted at all. It's over 2.5 at +112, for Miro Heiskanen in this game tonight. So keep an eye on that. Again, 3 or more shots for Miro in 4 straight games. Probably means there's some value there with the over 2.5 tonight for him in this game as well. That's really about it. As far as the props go for this game. Looking forward to it. I'll probably put some kind of point parlay together for point parlay involving players from both teams. I'll probably do one for just Colorado because I do think they're going to have a good night offensively, especially the big guns, McKinnon, Rantanen, Nichushkin, especially when that line in particular was just so silent in game 2 the other night. So, and called out a little bit by Jared Bednar as well. So those are definitely things I am looking at, no question. All right, there you go. That is the Saturday NHL playoff slate and betting breakdown. I hope you enjoyed it. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Hit the like button. We appreciate it very much if you haven't done so already. Someone asking about World Championship. I think over 5.5 with USA Germany. I like that a little bit. Like there were a couple bets I liked yesterday. It's probably a good bounce back spot for the US, but -2.5 plus. I would lean to that -2.5 with the States to bounce back after losing to Sweden yesterday in their first tournament game. But over 5.5, I think I like that more than anything. I could see that being a 5-1, 5-2 US win, something like that. I could definitely see it being that way. And again, the total's only 5.5 in that game, so I'd look at that. Can you bet team? I'm pretty sure you can bet team totals here with the what's the U.S. team total? 4.5 plus 125. Maybe sprinkle on that too. I think they can get 5 goals. They're a very talented group. Played a very good Sweden team yesterday, so something along those lines. U.S. team total over 4.5, split with a full game over 5.5. Or you could split the U.S. portion of it with team total and the -2.5. That's probably what I would look at there. I don't have a strong opinion on Norway and Czechia. What I do know is that Czechia is the home country here, of course, but it could be a little bit of a letdown after the big win yesterday against Finland. That was big. There's a big opponent you're playing. Little letdown against Norway. Norway is always one of those feisty teams. So, the idea of taking Norway plus 2.5, letdown spot here for the host nation, I don't mind that at all. We'll see. As far as goal props for the U.S. Germany game, I'm trying to see what's good value there as far as that goes. Most of the U.S. guys, JJ Peterka is a really good World Championship player. I remember last year how well he played. JJ Peterka for Germany, he's going to be the guy that carries their offense. There's no doubt. Now they have guys like Nico Sturm plays for San Jose, but Dominic Cahoon is on this Germany team. He's been in Europe the last few years, but he was in the NHL many years ago, Dominic Cahoon. So, that guy's got some ability as well. But JJ Peterka is a good goal prop on the Germany side today in that game. For the U.S., unfortunately, all the U.S. goal props, they're pretty well priced, in the game today. But like I said, Werenski, that's an interesting one, plus 550. So we'll see. Yeah, none from Peterka today, but he's still going to be the guy they have to count on offensively. So I don't mind going back to the well with that today. All right, great stuff. Again, patreon.com/Ice Guys, just $10 per month. Make sure you sign up there. We want you to be part of these betcasts that are Patreon exclusive, including the 2 coming up this week, Tuesday, May 14, Thursday, May 16. We want you in on these betcasts. It's a lot of fun, live betting, watching the games unfold as they go. And again, throw back a few beers as well. It's like a bar and a pub vibe. It's a lot of fun. Make sure you join us. Patreon exclusive, Stanley Cup playoffs, live betcasts this Tuesday and this Thursday, May 14th and May 16th. And the only way, again, to join us for these is to sign up for just $10 per month, patreon.com/Ice Guys, just $10 per month. You get access to our Patreon exclusive live betcasts, access to our daily sides, totals, and player props posted on the page each and every day, goalie charts, totals charts, and more, bonus content. And if you're worried about signing up in mid-May with the season almost over, don't worry. We're going to have tons of off-season content. We're bringing back the Players Suite interview series as well this summer. Current and former players, that'll be exclusive to Patreon. We're going to probably make the free agency recap show a Patreon exclusive piece of content this year. So we have you covered. It will not be a dormant, stagnant existence on the Patreon page in July, August, and September during the off season. We will still have plenty of content for you. So all the more reason to sign up. $10 per month. That's all it is. Your subscription fee goes a long way to keeping the show going long term. Patreon.com/Ice Guys, just $10 per month. And again, also make sure you check out the Ice Guys store, get your gear and your merch at iceguys.myspreadshop.com. All right, bargain bin special of the night and best bet coming up in just a moment, right after we hear from our great sponsors. All right, Boston Hemp Inc. Make sure you check them out. Get 20% off all orders on the website using the promo code IceGuys at bostonhempinc.com. All right, bargain bin special of the night for this Saturday NHL slate. 2 games to choose from, obviously, as far as the bargain bin is concerned. Bargain bin special of the night. I'm going to think about this one a little bit. I guess this is not anything based on current form, this one. This is just kind of that gut feel. In the pit of your gut, you feel he might get one tonight. And if Carolina is going to win tonight, and if Carolina is going to extend this series, he's got to, it would be great to see him get another goal. He's had some big goals in playoff games past for this Hurricanes team. I'm going to go with Jordan Martinook. It feels like a game for him maybe to finally pop one here. Easier said than done, obviously, against the New York Rangers and Igor Shesterkin the way he's playing. But I'm going to rock with Jordan Martinook for the Carolina Hurricanes at plus 490 to find the back of the net tonight for them. So Jordan Martinook for Carolina plus 490, my bargain bin special of the night for this Saturday slate. Best bet for this Saturday slate. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. We're rolling with these series that we believe will be consistently, at least for the most part, high-scoring games. We have Edmonton, Vancouver. Over was best bet on the show for both Game 1 and Game 2. Same thing with Dallas, Colorado. I had Dallas, Colorado Game 1, I believe. That was my best bet. I don't think Game 2 was. Maybe I can't remember now. But anyway, I've been on the over in both games. Dallas and Colorado, the first 2. We're going right back to it here. Makes a lot of sense to me. Colorado alone is averaging 5.5 goals per game on home ice here in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So I just don't see the offense slowing down with these two teams. So Dallas, Colorado, over 6.5, plus 100. That is going to be my best bet here for this Saturday NHL slate. Shout out to everyone in the chat again for joining us. Hit the like button on the way out. Appreciate it very much. A reminder, the Ice Guys is live Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, Saturday, Sunday, noon Eastern. If you can't watch the show live, download the Ice Guys podcast in audio form on all major podcast platforms, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and more. Download the Ice Guys podcast when you can't watch the show live. I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Saturday. Enjoy the games and good luck. And I will be back along with Zach Urban along for the ride with me tomorrow on Sunday for the Sunday edition of the Ice Guys.